dangerous.
Bad feeling about this.
You don't seem to understand something.
The thing that I like most about being a dad is that I see that I'm about to impact the world.
Man, what's up, people? It's your boy Humble Dad back with another edition of Humble Dad Podcast. I didn't know what was going on. It was crazy on the scene. All right, so hopefully everybody can hear me. Everything's good and ready to go. We got a great show for you this evening. Your boy's been out, not feeling too well, but we back, and it's going to be a great show as usual. And today we're going to be talking about things considered. Men want marriage and women want weddings. And so we're going to dive deep into the different ways men and women approach the idea of lifelong commitment. And why do so many men value the marriage? That's my thought, my take, or maybe others, while women seem to focus on the wedding, as some people have said. Are we missing each other in expectations, or are we simply wired differently? In this episode, it's all about bridging the gap, having solution-based conversations, and setting the foundation for a godly union. And so before we get started, we're going to have our get-to-know-you question that's centered around the topic for this evening, and that is, what's one misconception about weddings or marriage that you later learned wasn't true? And we're going to start with Mr. Prototype. What's up, my guy?
What's happening, man?
Chilling, bro.
I don't know, a misconception of a wedding.
Or marriage.
I know.
Oh, okay.
So, but a misconception of a marriage is that a wife comes like a wife already. When the truth about it is, you got to build her even after you got her. So,
got to build her after you got her.
It's only the materials. You still got to form it.
Okay, so it's a prototype.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Okay, cool.
I ain't gonna say no, it ain't a prototype either, because the prototype is already formed.
Oh, so you said like it's Legos.
You just have the materials. Yeah, you just had a box of Legos.
Oh, dang. Okay. All right, let's get. All right, that's an interesting start. I knew you was gonna do something like that. Hey, we're gonna welcome to the stage none other than Miseducated Ash in the building.
Why you lying to people? Ain't nobody educated. Anyway, I just got to look. I know a lot. I know a lot about a little about a lot. That's it.
Okay. That's what's up.
The song, as I told you, that popped in my head is "Make It Last." Ooh, ooh, ooh. Make it last forever. Forever. Yeah, because that's a myth now. Y'all not making it last. Y'all just making it last till the ink dry. That's all.
Yeah. Wow.
I told you it's gonna be some food.
Yeah, man. I did not see that coming at all. Goodness gracious. Hey, thank you for being here. It's gonna be that type of night. Hey, welcome to the stage, none other than Miss Taken in the building. How you doing, man?
Let me come off mute.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Good. I think the misconception is you only get a chance to do it once. And the reason I'm saying that, look, it's a double entendre. Hold on. I think some people, of course, do it more than once because they get a divorce and, have a second marriage. But I think even if your marriage lasts, you still have the opportunity to do it over. And for me specifically, I'm talking about when we renewed our vows. So we got to do the wedding and the marriage over, so to speak. recommitting to our marriage. And the difference between this second time around is we came into marriage with a wealth of knowledge of what marriage really means. So being able to recommit to that with a different level of understanding going into the marriage versus the first time thinking you had an idea and you realize you really don't until once you're in it.
That's really good. I like that. That's really good. All right. Thanks for being here as usual. And welcome to the stage, none other than the Barry White in these streets, lost in translation. What's up,
Come on inside and get yourself something cool to drink.
Good evening, sir.
What's up?
What's
That's
happening?
hilarious. I'm good, bro. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking.
For sure.
Listen, a misconception about weddings and marriages is that people think weddings last forever and marriages don't. You know what I mean? They wake up every morning thinking that every day is going to be the wedding, and then they actually think that marriages don't last forever. I'm here to tell you they do last forever, but you got to put in the work. You know what I'm saying? And my thing is that once the wedding is over, it's over. That's just one single day. So I think people have the misconception of thinking that when they wake up every day, it's going to be a wedding, and that's not the case.
Man, that was rock steady. That's really good. The one that came to mind was that the wedding doesn't have to be expensive. That's a misconception. I think that people believe that you even have to have one. You know, the courthouse is good. A small sanction of a wedding is good. You can go and get married, you two, and then come back, have the reception. There are many different ways to do a wedding. It doesn't have to be what it is that you see on TV. And then as it relates to marriage, I would say the misconception is that you're going to agree most of the time. Most of the time, you're going to be in a disagreement. It's just a matter of how do you disagree with one another, the communication part of it. And so with that being said, we're going to kind of connect these dots and see if this statement is true or not, and not just our misconceptions of things or reality of things, right? And so we're going to talk about, are men want marriage and women want weddings, or if it's a different way of thinking about it. Okay, so we're going to start with this question. It's long, so I'm gonna read it and then I'm going to post it. How do expectations for marriage differ between men and women? How does that impact the relationship before it starts? Okay. How do expectations for marriage differ between men and women? And how does that impact the relationship before it starts? And we're going to start with you, Miss Taken, the seasoned veteran.
Dang, why you do that? I'm trying to get my thoughts together.
I know.
I think the first thing that kind of popped into my mind is that women go into a marriage thinking or expecting that things are going to change, and men go into a marriage not wanting anything to change. So that was kind of the first thing that popped into my head, because I think a lot of times during the dating phase, getting to know each other, that kind of things, women notice, and I'm not going to say the red flag things, I'm just talking about just regular things that they think that they'll be able to deal with in a marriage, or think that they can accept it, but then once they get married, it's like you're just gonna have to change. Like I can't, like those kind of things. So a lot of the changes in expectations that we have once we are married, I think impacts the marriage, because the men are like, man, you wasn't anything like this, or you wasn't saying anything about this before we got married. Now it's an issue. Whereas I agree that should have been shared prior to. But then on the same token, I think in a marriage, a man thinks that or don't want anything to change. And I think change is just a natural progression of life. And men will hold on to the fact that, oh, men are so simple. We don't want much. We just want just, give me some food, some, sex, and I'm good. Whereas that's really not the case, because when you're married, that's not what it's going to take to make a marriage work. So that was the first thing that kind of popped into my mind.
That's what's up. I like that. That's a good start. Who you got going next?
Go ahead, Ash. She was thinking too hard.
She was. How do expectations for marriage differ between men and women? And how does that impact the relationship before it starts?
I don't even like the question. I can't even answer that. I haven't been on that side, okay? First of all, it differs because don't nobody talk about what they want. Everybody in with this delusional version of what it should be, and it ain't what it is. Everybody want to be Ken and Barbie forever with the Barbie dream house and the Jeeps and the cars, the boats, and all of the other shenanigans, but not knowing that it requires work, job. And if I see it one more time on the internet, this 100K. If I see it one more time, I'm gonna scream. The impact is the divorce. That's what it is. The divorce. That's the impact. Because you got two strangers thinking the wedding day is going to make them know each other. And they don't even know each other. They just get married in 2 minutes and divorce 5 minutes later because everybody finding out the avatar isn't real. The delusion does not match the reality. Lost in translation. Please bail me out.
I got you, Ash. Here's the thing. Expectations shape the whole entire relationship based upon how you were trained. For the most part, women think that every day is going to be exciting. You know what I mean? And for the most part, when you're in a regular marriage, regular days are going to be the regular. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes women get bored and they'll say, well, you don't never take me anywhere. We don't ever do anything. You know what I'm saying? And the killing part about it is they expect every day to be like a date night. You know what I'm saying? They expect that you want to wine and dine and all this other stuff. But for the most part, it's Monday through Friday, going to work, punching that clock, making sure you get the stuff done around the house. And that's about it. And you have vacations and stuff like that every now and then. But I think what happens is when people are doing the normal things of life, people think that's boring. And they think that automatically that's supposed to be roses picked up for you every day and all this other stuff. And that's not necessarily how it is. You know, we reserve that stuff for holidays, anniversaries, that type of thing. But for the most part, I think that's one of the things that women expect excitement every day. When in reality, most marriages are just regular, everyday, ordinary things. You know, you have meatless Mondays, Taco Tuesdays, don't cook on Friday. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. And I think if you set the correct expectations, I think that actually make marriage last a little longer. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's normally how it is. And sometimes men think that you're supposed to just go to work all the time and don't have absolutely no fun. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to blow off steam, man, and relax. One of the number one killers of men is stress. And if you don't go on vacation every now and then and release some of that stress, it's going to build up. It's going to hurt you. And that's the main reason why most men don't last that long. You know, they get burned out because they don't relieve themselves of stress. So I think that's one of those things. Men want to work all the time and women want to play all the time. But if you sit up here and you set the expectations where there's a balance, then I think that'll actually help the marriage along the way. Let's go with Prototype next.
That was good.
I think the expectations is kind of how I stated in the beginning, right? Is people think that, oh, now that you're married, you automatically come with all these different attributes. You know what I'm saying? Not understanding that you got to build these attributes within one another. You know what I'm saying? So women don't necessarily build within men, but men have to build up their women, putting those Lego blocks together, you know, as far as what kind of wife they want, they need. But women need that communication, you know what I'm saying? Men do struggle with communicating things that we think are simple that should be understood amongst another adult. But, you know, I think a misconception is that a woman has the same mentality as a man, a male adult, opposed to it being more like a teenager's mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like as that female functions on a regular basis. So that's kind of how the expectations are, you know, differ. Women are looking for men to be leaders, and men are looking for women who can help and not have to answer all the questions all the time. But the sooner you realize you have to have all the answers to the questions, and the better you are as a man.
You think men have to know all the answers?
Yeah. I mean, you won't never know all, but you got to be willing to, you know what I mean? Like if you're a manager and you're coming up on a new project, you got to set your team up with the most information you can so they can be successful. You know what I'm saying? So as y'all go through the project, you know what I'm saying? But she needs to be like, you need to be like, okay, I trust this person might be able to handle anything that might come outside of that. You understand what I'm saying? Even if they don't, but you trust the ability to figure it out. So.
Okay, I asked it to the panel. Do y'all think that men have to know all the answers to the test, Ash?
This is bullying. This is bullying.
You're welcome.
To answer the question, I say no, because you can't know everything. You can have a plan. You can plan for everything, but you don't have to know everything. If that makes sense, because like he said with the example there, if there's a new project, you never know who left our plan B on the table that didn't bring it to where we need it. You get what I'm saying? So you got to have a backup. I kind of agree with that, kind of don't, because some of the guys walking around here with no plan, no action, no nothing. I know that we're not talking about those people. No pun intended. Ain't trying to hit nobody with no type of stone, any of that. It's just the simple fact that you want to have the answers, but you're not willing to seek and find and go get them to relay them back. Because sometimes you have to do a track and report thing. You know, if you're part of management, that's what sometimes the higher up wants, is you to track and report it so you can find out what works for your team and what don't. But again, that depends on the managerial style. Not gonna go too deep.
That's good. It depends on the managerial style. What you say, Ms. Taken? Does a man need to know all the answers? And if not, what's the percentage would you say that he would need to know?
I would say no. He doesn't need to know all the answers, nor do I expect that he's going to have all the answers. I think I would be more concerned about, actually was talking literally about one of my supervisors today with other coworkers, with one of the things that the person is a very nice person, but one of the things that was consistent about the issues that everybody was having is the level of not just saying, I don't know, but I'll find the answer and get back to you, right? The need to always feel like you have to have the answer. So you will say something just to say something, even though it's not relative or resolving whatever the issue is or the topic that needs to be addressed, because of the feel or the need to know everything because of your position, right? It's obvious that you're not going to know everything, but you need to trust that maybe somebody on your team has that information and can assist, but you don't lean into that because you think you should know. And that's what, when Prototype was talking, that's kind of what made me think of that whole situation, is because he says something along the lines of, you already have the pieces, you got to build a Lego. Is me that needs to tell her what she needs to do, Like, it's the pouring into is only coming from one direction. And I think with a mindset, and I'm not saying this is him specific because I have no idea how he moves in his marriage, but with a mindset in terms of the way that I received what he said, is that it's going to be very difficult for him to grow within a marriage, and even for her to grow, because some of that growth, it sounds like when you have what do they call it? Micromanaging, right? So if you're the one that's doing all of the pouring, all of the telling, all of the molding, how is it that she's truly going to flourish in who she is? I think a good supervisor, husband, wife already see the things that are in her, and they know how to nurture that and know how to cultivate that to help the individual grow into who they are, which would then also end up being a benefit to them anyway, right? And so that was kind of like, if you know everything, you have all the answers, then what's the purpose of a marriage? Because then a marriage becomes the project, right? It becomes your project. And I don't think that's what a marriage is about. I do think iron sharpens iron. There may be some areas that I know there are some areas in my marriage that my husband absolutely know more than, right? Like, I'm going to rely on him and trust in his answers or trust in his knowledge set, because that is his thing. And I know that. And then I think that there are some things that he leaned into me for, because that is my knowledge set. And he trusts that, you know, my I guess knowledge set about whatever that specific thing is. But if it's something that he doesn't know, he's quick to be like, I don't know. And so either he'll do what he needs to do to figure that out, depending on what it is, or he'll put it back on me, like, go ahead and figure that out, because it's not necessarily something that he like needs to do, so to speak, but he knows I'm just asking because I probably don't want to do the work myself to figure it out. And so he'd be like, no, you got it. Go ahead. You figure that out. So I think, you know, iron sharpens iron in that regard. But if only one person is doing the, you know, sharpening, the other person's going to be dull, I guess.
Interesting. Lost, what you thinking? Does the man have to have all the answers?
Listen, I'm so glad that you said that, man, because I just got through having this conversation on the King and Me podcast.
Oh, wow.
And I was telling them, I said, plans are for women. Let me explain to you what I mean by that.
What?
They need to know everything, man. They need to know what you're going to do. Think about it. When you sit down and you go on a date with a woman, one of the things they ask you what your 5-year plan is. You know what I'm saying? No man on the face of the earth has ever asked a woman, what's your 5-year plan? You know why? Because we already know what your 5-year plan is. It's us. You see what I'm saying? So that's the reason why we don't ask you guys. Now, here's the thing. It's important for us to get you on the same page as being a leader and a supervisor or a manager, something like that. You have to get the buy-in. And one of the ways to get the buy-in is ask for input. You know what I'm saying? Because if you tell somebody to do something, you don't give them input, they're not going to willingly do it. The Lord says that the Lord loves a cheerful giver. And you'll get the most out of somebody if they have input in a particular situation. So that's the main reason why a plan is important, is because you have to make sure you get the buy-in, because it has to seem like it's their idea as well. If it's not, you're going to get pushback. They're going to think you're doing it the wrong way. You don't know what you're talking about. But if you get an agreement, like we talked about the week before, if there's an agreement, then I think the whole situation between the man and the woman and what plans you have and will go smoothly, because you did get the buy-in. Now, most of the time, most guys already do have the answer, but they just want to make sure they give you the opportunity to have your say so. Prototype is on you, bro.
I mean, she literally came right back into what I was talking about in the first place. She literally used cultivate. You know what I'm saying? Which is exactly what I was talking about. You have to cultivate your woman to be the woman you need. So yes, so she can help you take off the task that you like, hey, I'm gonna teach you this, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. You know what I'm saying? And then once we start doing new challenges, I'm gonna teach you that. You know what I'm saying? But even still, if you take a woman on a date, you got to know where you're going, how to get there, the valet situation, how to order her food, what she like to eat. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, you get input, like, hey, what you like to eat, or where you normally blah blah blah. Like, and as you're getting to meet somebody, you're taking in input. You know what I'm saying? And as she's telling you stories about her life, oh yeah, when I was growing up, I really loved the cotton candy at this carnival, blah blah blah. And then later on, you're at a date at a carnival with cotton candy. You know what I'm saying? So we're doing the work of learning the situation, so then we could lead you, and then you're like, oh, he was just so easy. He was just so this. It just felt seamless being with this guy. This man been working. You know what I'm saying? It feels seamless to you because this guy's been working to make sure you have this seamless experience. So that's what I mean. Like, you got to know everything, and when you got new challenges, you got to learn them first. Even when I know a new restaurant I want to try, I'll go there first. Make sure the wait staff is cool. I have a good experience. Oh, okay, this is a spot I could bring her. But I just don't randomly take my wife to places that I haven't scoped out yet.
Interesting.
Say something? Can I?
You sure can. You sure can.
A tidbit in. You see, the work he talking about. That work he talking about, all that planning and going and investigating work. That's what they don't do no more. That's why marriages is going straight to divorce. Because if you plan and you actually get to know somebody and not the trauma or the toxic part of their life, you can have a better experience. But people love to bond over the trauma. I was cheated on. I was left in the cold without a jacket. I got splashed with the water. Oh, the rain was coming down. No, everybody got a sad story, right? Everybody on this panel can honestly say they done been dumped, cheated on. Something done went wrong, right? Your mama didn't buy you something that you wanted. Everybody done had that type of experience. But that's why I said, I know a couple shows back in my haste of not being here, that if we start working on what we actually want, what actually the feel good is, we maybe could get somewhere and get these marriages to last longer. That's why I say I don't go in with all that. Well, he hurt me. Oh, he took my heart and just put it in a blender and chopped it up and served it to me cold. No, don't get to know me through my past and the toxic. Get to know me and the happy parts of me. You know what I'm saying? Do things to make me happy. Why would you worry about what hurts unless you're trying to do the same thing? And I think that's where society has made the pain the cycle that everybody needs to be in order to be in an alleged healthy relationship. That's not a healthy relationship if you're going over pain. Why are we reliving pain? You trying to tell me there was nothing good about your childhood? There was not one person that you could lean on or somebody that made you feel special? Stuff like that. Anyway, y'all go ahead and carry on.
No, that makes sense, though. A lot of people operate from the position of trauma because they play what they call victimhood. But if they would lean into the productive parts of themselves and what it is that they're aspiring to do and be, then they will have a more productive life, I believe. What I'm hearing is that men perceive that women want them to know everything. And I would say, for the most part, I think that most women want their man to know a lot because they're a leader, right? So they want them to know a lot about everything to some degree, because if not, he's not interesting. And I liken it to this one episode where the guy gave it, it's on Pop the Balloon. Now, it's not everybody, right? But this is just recalling my memory. There was one guy that said he was a particular profession. The lady popped her balloon because she said she didn't think that she thought that his profession was boring and that they would not have anything to talk about. Well, in a relationship, the benefit of somebody not doing exactly what you do or liking what you do is another opportunity to learn something that you didn't know before and to be able to get into your wheelhouse. You know what I'm saying? I talk about it all the time. I didn't have to cook, but in my first marriage, and now I cook on a regular, and I even enjoy it, and so it's in my bag, if you will, to be able to cook at any time that I want to and not have to go spend money because I'm afraid I'm gonna burn something. You feel me? And so, and then I didn't do hair. I've never done hair, but I'm interested in my wife when she talks about her doing people's hair and makeup and the different textures. So when I'm watching movies, I can see something totally different in the movie than I have ever done before, whether that's makeup or whether that's hair or whether that's how they set the scene, because she's worked on movie stars and things of that nature. So I think you should be, as the word says, especially men, you should study your wife, study your girl, alluding to what Prototype was saying, because once you learn them and you have an understanding of what it is that they like, you can make another experience for them as it relates to what Prototype always say, the food and the fun. You know what I'm saying? So if you're listening well enough, then you'll be able to provide them that experience. That's my take. Now, as we transition, go ahead, Lost. You want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to what we talked about earlier,
Sure.
about people expecting stuff to be exciting all the time.
Yes,
In this
sir.
particular situation, in the popped up balloon situation, she said we wouldn't have anything to talk about because we don't do anything together. I think that was an excuse because she really didn't like him and she didn't want to come off as the bad guy and say, hey, I just don't like you. She used an excuse as saying, hey, we wouldn't have anything in common. Well, here's the thing. That's the whole thing about being with somebody, is discovering what you don't know about that person. It's the unknown. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think people are being honest with themselves when it comes to getting to know people. Instead of saying, hey, I'm not sure I'm attracted to you, or I don't know how I feel about you quite yet, they'll just say we wouldn't have anything in common. And it actually absolves them from the responsibility of even trying.
That's really good. That makes sense. Go
It
ahead.
was something that you said that made me laugh, because like how you saying about your wife now is kind of teaching you certain things about hair stuff. Why now when we watch TV, my husband's like, oh, look at her edges. I'm like, you just now finding out what edges are. Now he going around looking at edges and he like, oh, she got a weave. That's a wig or a weave. Like, it's hilarious.
Yes, I do that now too. Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. Yes, seeing women's hair differently now than I ever have before is crazy. So yeah, that's just one of the things that I've learned. I really appreciate that. So as we transition, this is kind of connected to what we've already been talking about, and I think it's important that people, when they're dating, that they ask questions. And not just those really flaky questions, like what's your favorite color or things of that nature, but really questions that allow you to think about where you see yourself. Now, lost in translation, he said, well, the 5-year plan of a woman is her man. That's funny, but I understand that perspective, and it could be true.
Can you explain that? Will you explain what he meant? Because I didn't understand what that meant.
What that meant from my perspective, what I heard was that she is his helpmate. And so she's supposed to be getting on the same page with him and helping him get to the goals that he wants to achieve. In line with that, I believe, this is me, that same guy will definitely help you achieve your goals because you're helping him reach his goals. A quick example would be Steph Curry. Right, Steph Curry made it to the league, and then his wife is alongside him, and she got all the benefits of her being his wife, right? And so much so with other celebrity wives, right? They came alongside him, and then they end up flourishing as a result of that because he poured back into her. And even the people such as us that are not that are not celebs. Such as myself, my wife has benefited from me with her business in the sense of that she didn't have to hire somebody to put up stuff in her salon. I was able to do that, put things together that she needed to put together, or even help her move. Just simple examples of that. And so what I'm going to ask is, what questions should couples be asking each other before they ever talk about wedding plans? What questions should couples be asking each other before they ever talk about wedding plans? We're gonna start with you, Lost. What you got?
One of the things I think they should talk about is how do you guys work well together? And do you guys have the same moral background or moral compass? Things as simple as politics can rip a family apart. If you guys ideologically see things differently, then that's going to cause a rip and a rift in your particular marriage or situation. So I think that one of the main things you can do is say, hey, can we work together? Can we work well together? That's the only basis for any type of relationship. You know what I mean? Do you play well with others? As I say early all the time, like kids always say, do you always want your way? Do you only see one person in a relationship? You know what I mean? Do you see yourself only wanting to get something out of a relationship versus giving to the relationship? Those are some of the small things I think couples really should hone in on, because building from there is the foundation for everything else. You have, like we talked about earlier, you got to get the buy-in and you have to get the agreement, or else it's not going to work.
That's what's up. Who you got next?
I'm going to go with Miss Taken.
Okay. She ain't have enough information, bro. She wants
that's why I gave it to her.
Listen, we home to you, Miss Taken.
You gonna be first. Look, I'm writing.
You gonna be first or second?
One of the things that came to my mind is because I think I was thinking about early on, like when my husband and I were like dating and stuff. One of the things that I think I would ask now, like in knowing, going through life, like, how do you handle conflict? That would definitely be a question. Another one is, what are your expectations for your partner or wife? And the reason I asked that is that I came to a realization not too long ago, because being in these spaces make you reflect about a lot of things. And that I remember never having a conversation with my husband. Neither one of us ever had a conversation about expectations of roles and responsibilities in a relationship or marriage. I took on a role what I was taught, not necessarily what I wanted for myself or needed. He took on the same expectation for me. And I never really had developed an expectation for him in terms of what I needed. And so as a result of that, I went into the relationship with a clear understanding of what I'm supposed to do or should do, even though that wasn't necessarily what I needed or wanted to do. And then as we progressed within our relationship, then the resentment set in on my end, because I was taking on something that I wasn't necessarily ready for or want. I wouldn't even say necessarily ready. I took on way too much without the expectation of how I needed him to help, because that's what I saw growing up, is that the women just did everything. And not to say that the men didn't do anything, but it was just like the child rearing, going to work, still cooking, cleaning, da-da-da-da. So when I walked into that situation, in my mind, I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I was working full time, going to school full time, trying to be the wife, making sure dinner was cooked all the time. My son bathed, like I was doing everything. And then the resentment set in, and I didn't necessarily was clear on what it is that I needed. Because to be honest, I think the other thing that women are taught indirectly, I can't say about now, but are taught indirectly, is that everybody else's needs come first, right? So the kids come first, the husband comes first, you got to work. So that takes priority too, because you need to help, cover bills. And so you're on the back burner and feeling like your needs are never met. And then it's kind of like what Lost in Translation says, the holiday comes around, Mother's Day, that's your day. Your birthday, that's your day. Christmas, that's your day. So it's like 3 days out of 365. It's like you don't feel like you're appreciated, right? But I realized that I had to take ownership and responsibility for me not communicating that as I should, and even if I didn't have all of the answers or knew exactly what I was feeling, to express like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like I, took on this, because the other end of that was the more I did it, the more it became his expectation. And then that set in that cycle of more resentment. So I'm doing those like underhand, like slamming the dishes, like, you should know I'm mad, like kind of thing. But I definitely think that after me getting to a space, and again, I think age and stage of life helps a lot, that I was able to go to him and both of us renegotiate the unspoken terms of our relationship. And to my surprise and desire is he stepped it up and did, what I needed, which made his life and my life a lot easier, because now I'm not angry, slamming dishes, being mad. You wasn't, I ain't in a mood, like that kind of thing. So that's what I would say.
That's dope. That transparency is dope. That's very much needed from both parties for sure. Who you got going next?
I had a follow-up question for her.
Okay. No, absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. Ms. Taken, earlier you said that you saw women growing up doing everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like raising the kids and that type of thing. What role did you see the men play in your life?
I would say it all depends. So I have on my dad's side, he had two brothers. So my dad and his two brothers were all of them very different, distinctly different types of husbands. And then on my mom's side, the only male example I had was my grandfather. And he was very different than all of men, right? So my day-to-day example, of course, was my dad. And when I say, I don't want to say that he didn't do anything. My dad, he worked. He did his job, right? But he prioritized himself and everything else. So I don't recall him seeing how he put my mom first. I'm gonna be completely transparent. He didn't. He prioritized his needs, and was clear about what he wanted her role to be, which was to do everything while he had the freedom to still live his life and do the things that he wanted, and then show up when he was actually needed. Like if there was a doctor's appointment, because he had the flexibility of his job, he, was able to stop by the school when I fell down the steps and thought I broke my ankle, at school. He did show up, like when we went off to college, and if we needed to be picked up from like the bus station or something like that, he did those things. But day-to-day grind, he was not involved. She was really, and she said this self, she felt like a single parent within a marriage.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that was because I kind of wanted to know if your father's relationship shaped your expectations for your husband, where you felt like you couldn't come to him because of what you've seen, because of what you were expecting. So now that you had an opportunity to communicate your needs with your husband, and he's demonstrated to you that, yes, I'm a team player, just let me know what you need and I'll get in there. It actually helps your expectations of what a role of a husband should be. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I had a great example of a role in my grandfather.
Right.
But I guess like my mom, I remember she said that, and my mom was very naive. Like they grew up in the hills of West Virginia. And he was a pastor, and she was my dad was the only person she's ever been with, things like that. So that level of expectation that she had, she automatically assumed that a husband would be like her dad. They were raised in a church and only, kind of commingled with men in the church. And so if he's saved and he was raised in the church, then obviously he knows God the way that my dad does. And so she says she remember prior to them getting married, I can't remember what she said he did, but she said her response to that in her mind was, I can't wait till I get married so things would be different. Because she thought that once she got married,
he was going to be like how her dad was.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, and I like that you brought that up, Lost in Translation, because that comes back to I think what Prototype said a while ago when he said, "I don't want my sons dating anybody that did not come from a 2-parent household." Do you remember saying this, Prototype? So talk to me about why did you say that, and is it any connection to what Miss Taken is saying?
I say that to reduce the trauma. Getting a woman to reduce the trauma, the trauma effects of growing up in a single parent household, being promiscuous and all types of stuff like that, right? I think it gives the best possible chance for someone to be as moldable as possible, to have the cleanest Legos, not broken pieces of Legos, you know what I'm saying? Because there's only so much you could do with a broken Lego, you know what I'm saying? So to make sure that the bucket is whole in at least the pieces you're getting, that's why I make the statement of that. What's the initial question though?
The initial question is that what questions should couples be asking each other before they ever talk about wedding plans?
Right. So it's one of those things of how many questions when you go to a basketball court do you ask when you're picking up a teammate?
Man,
you want to run next?
Yeah.
That's it. Right. And
Yeah.
then y'all start playing. Right. And as y'all play the game, then y'all start learning how each other plays. You know what I'm saying? And then that can stimulate more conversation after that. But as far as checking off boxes of what I should be asking, man, like you ever see kids make friends on the playground? They walk up to each other. You want to play tag? Sure. Gone. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's only after that, after they start playing and understanding, like, oh, you're not fair. Oh, well, and seeing if you're irrational in those interactions, and then you make the decision like he was cool to play with or they wasn't cool. I don't want to play with that person no more. They don't know how to play fair. They don't know how to be this way. You know what I'm saying? They always want things to go their way. They always trying to take the ball and go this way. I don't want to play with them. They're not cool. You understand what I'm saying? So as far as what you should be asking, and then eventually after y'all play enough games, hey, man, we be playing over at this park over here. Let's run over there. You understand what I'm saying? That's the relationship transition. You start taking them in other places and seeing them in different environments. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like how you take a coworker from work, you know what I'm saying? And that ends up being somebody that you hang out with. And then that ends up being somebody you bring around your family. And that ends up being somebody that y'all might be roommates at a whole nother situation. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you just start, hanging out and figuring things out on the way. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, oh, what question should I ask? But you just, hey, you want to go hoop? Bet, let's go hoop. And then see how things progress.
Go ahead, Miss Sankey.
I think honestly, that's part of the problem that we have is we fall into the relationship and figuring it out as we go along, and not saying that part doesn't naturally happen, because of course you're not going to be able to know the person in like one date and then ask all of these questions, be like, oh, I know who that is. But especially from a man's perspective, if you're the leader, or he gave the analogy about basketball, right? Somebody being like who you're choosing to be on your team. If you are the coach of that team, you should know what players you're looking for. So there's going to be certain skill sets, or if you're a boss, you know what job you're trying to fill in terms of the position. So there's going to be certain questions. There's going to be certain things that you should be looking for, because you're just not going to have anybody on the team and then figuring it out. You're just not going to hire somebody and let them do on the job training without having some kind of idea of what it is you're looking for. I do like what he said, though, because you're not going to know everything. And there has to be a level one of chemistry. There has to be something that's going to keep you there to learn the person. But I do think that there should be a character standard or something that when you're meeting the person and you're having conversation, that those conversations are leading you to get to know if this is a potential player for the team.
You want to know something funny about your job reference? You ever apply for a job that said this person needs a degree, this many years of experience, blah, 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 XYZ, and then you have it, you fit that bill, right? And you go to the interview and you get the job. And then once you start like working with your coworkers, you found out you're the smartest person there. You understand what I'm saying? Like you're smarter than your manager. You know what I'm saying? You be like, hold on, man, that's kind of whack. But I use the pickup game because it's kind of like loose. You know what I'm saying? It's not serious. Like if y'all went out, y'all had a good day that day. You know what I'm saying? But it's a long progress. It's a long process of meeting somebody at the hoop court, and then y'all have one pickup game. Maybe I go for a run. Then you go back to the hoop court, and now you like, hey, you want to run again? You understand what I'm saying? It's a repetitive thing where you're building. You know what I'm saying? Before you even get to the point of, can you come to my house? You understand what I'm saying? And that's why I kind of transitioned into even like how a coworker can go to from somebody you work with to somebody you might, then you be like, oh, he's cool. And you want to come work out with me? That's a long process before they get to come to my house for the fight party. And then, you know what I'm saying? Once they come to your house for the fight party, then, you know what I'm saying? It's more intimate. Hey, come to my house for Thanksgiving. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a long process, you know what I mean? And so it's not skipping anything. And I don't think you actually learn anything by asking the questions per se. It's more about seeing the character, right? The only time you're going to see that integrity come out is in these situations. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you've purposely put people in situations, but in these situations where you're taking them to different environments, you're testing to see their temperament in those different environments. And now you're sitting back and watching them learn when things get uncomfortable. Like if y'all go out to hang out at a bar, a fight breaks out, what they do? You know what I'm saying? Did they grab you and be like, hey, we this way? Did they run to the fight? You know what I'm saying? You can't ask that question. You got to see things in action. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we make our decisions as men, is seeing things in action. Like, oh no, they good. They just, you know, when we was in this situation, they stuck out like this. Or when they seen something wrong, they spoke up. Or I seen somebody drop their wallet while we was going to the baseball game. They picked it up and was like, hey, I got your wallet. You know what I'm saying? They didn't pocket it and looking through it. You know what I'm saying? So it's situations where you got to see who people are. And that's, like I said, it's a long process. You know what I'm saying? You can't just go from, let me ask these questions. Because those questions be bogus. People be asking you questions that they don't even do themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it just is what it is.
That is dope. I mean, if you hoop, then the analogy sticks out like a sore thumb, because if you never hooped with somebody before, you never played basketball with them before, you're really picking up a stranger. And not until you get onto the court where y'all have any idea of how each other's going to play. So that's a situation, right? You're not going to necessarily ask questions. It's going to be kind of like a flow, that's what he's talking about. So when you're on these dates, or even before you get to the date, there should be lots of conversations that have taken place before we get to a date, right? Or time that has been spent to have a conversation, you know. And then let's say we do go to this date because you like the conversation. Now it's a matter of talking about who you are, how did you get to this point, maybe, or even, you know, what happened? Why are you single now? You know, because that I think that would be a pretty generic question. And seeing how it is that they respond, because there you can hear if there's any accountability. And there you can hear what was the transition, how long was it, what made you even want to date anymore or date again, you know, in this sphere of all of this mess that's going on inside of you know, having a hard time finding somebody. Why would you even want to do this to yourself? You know, those type of questions, especially if you're serious. And if we're getting towards the marriage, that means that it's gotten pretty serious. And so one of the questions as it relates to before the marriage would be, how do you see the finances being ran? Who is going to be in charge of the finances? How is it that we're going to distribute monies out of these particular accounts? Or are we going to have a set account where all the money is together? Or do you believe in everybody have their own account? Like, what is your thought process on that? How much are you thinking about spending on a wedding? Is it important for you to have a dynamic ring, or is that even important to you? You know, things of that nature, which is what I would say leading, or if you're before the wedding is coming up, you want to know what they think about going into it before you go ahead and do it. How do you feel about raising kids? Are you a disciplinarian? What was it like when you were a kid? Did your parents put their hands on you, or were you did they talk to you? What was it that they did? You know, and then also along with what Prototype is saying, if they're in these different situations, when y'all go out, you're gonna see, okay, because at some point in time you're not gonna have the greatest customer service, right? And so you can see how they respond to the waiter or waitress, right? You can also see what is it that they order on a regular. Is it something that's going to be filling, or is it something that they kind of take bites of, right? Even if they don't go to the gym, what are their eating habits? So you will be able to see these things sometimes I would say a lot of the times if you're paying attention, you know. So those are some of the questions that I think would be productive in asking prior to a wedding. What do you think, Ash?
Cap. All cap. What's the question?
You don't even know what we was talking about.
Yes, I do.
I'm
sick of this bullying. I'm sick of this. Oh, you're not paying attention because you're doing blase. I feel in my little heart that what people really need to do is start looking at how these folks treat their parents, how they interact with them. Do they talk about their mama? Do they rekindle? Because, you know, some of these people really don't like their mamas and their daddies. Some of these people really got a problem with their grandmamas and their grandpas and how they treated them. They got some stuff that they need to work and get over. And then what you were saying, financial, because I think, because we in this, what I call it, this pimp and whore situation now, this culture, because it's what it is. You know, the man got this much money, you go date him, which I don't understand, because I'm still trying to figure out if all of us, all the single people, if we're all after this one man that's either dark skinned or light skinned, and he got to make $100K or above a year, how we all gonna date him?
They already doing it.
Look, no, y'all can't have them. Y'all just left me 99%. Y'all go ahead. I'm good.
He's not taking time.
I would be thinking.
Him and his homies is what's that pinball machine, right? Pick of the week, pick of the month, whatever. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. I'm just saying how what needs to happen is everybody needs to have a sit-down conversation with themselves, actually, to see what they're actually looking for and what they're willing to do. That's why I said when somebody buy me something, I think about what went into it. Did you put a thought into it, or is this one of them hush gifts, or just one of them shut you up? You know, because you know people buy you something just to say it's Valentine's Day, just so you don't feel left out. You know, people do kind of crazy stuff, but there's no thought in it. You know, it's like, oh, let me go buy this. $20. You know, $20, you know, I can go to Whataburger. Y'all know I love Whataburger, you know. That's America's. Well, if you ain't from the South, you're missing out. Anyway, or I can go to Golden Chick. That's my other favorite place. That I love their chicken. You know, like people don't do thoughtful things. It's always a hush thing. It's like, oh, I did it. Give me credit. You know how teacher sign you homework and it's like this 5 extra points if you do the bonus question, then you get it. That's what everybody look for. Everybody look for bonus. You're not really do the actual work for it, the actual research. You just want the bonus to put you over the top so you can pass, so you can stay in the win. Because I don't think people really have any serious conversation when it comes down to being in wedding. You see how fast people get married? Like, oh, you and Tom just got together yesterday. Oh, yeah, I already moved in. Okay. Oh, he proposed Monday night. Okay. And y'all for the vacation in the Bahamas tomorrow. Okay, cool, fine, dandy. It's quick. What is it? The microwave and the oven. Nobody want to cook the roast. They want the, you know, the Hungry Man dinner that's already done. They want the preheat. Pop it in the microwave, 5 minutes is done. Nobody want to go in there and cook it from scratch and actually do the work. It's easier to just pop it in the microwave, right?
So what would be a question you would ask somebody?
I'm serious. How are you with your parents? Like how
that would be like
the reason why I say how do you interact with your family?
Because me and my pops don't get along.
Okay. Why? Are you working on that? Are you okay?
I'm not working on that.
I just met you and I don't want to tell you why me and my pops don't get along.
Yeah.
If you like, please. If you maybe you probably
like why you asking me if I got a relationship with my pops? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't get along with my pops. I don't get along with my mom.
Finances, that's personal too.
I'm not asking. We not asking that.
I didn't say that.
That's the whole purpose of conversation. Some people are going to find things very personal to talk about, depending on how much conversation y'all have already had. Because I know if I met somebody on the first date and they start like, even though my credit is good, if you came out asking me, so what's your credit?
That's a legit question.
I'm not saying it's not a legit question.
Or the first date.
Timing means everything. Don't ask me that on the first date. I don't know you like that. I'm trying to get to know you. So I can't reveal everything about me because I don't know if you are that dude.
Miss, thank you. With all due respect, your credit score should be like that's a really good question. That says a lot about a person.
That is not a good question.
That's a good question. What's your credit score? Right. You can say, is it in the 6s?
The fact that I don't know you is
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why.
But I'm saying as a woman or vice versa, if a woman was asking you as a man, you're gonna have a preconceived notion as to why she asking that. For me as a woman, I would be too. Like, why he trying to get in my pockets? Why he trying to know what's what?
How can I get in your pockets if I know your credit score?
But because you're clocking how I am with my money.
Yes. That's important to know.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not
on the first date.
Why not?
Not
because it's none of your business.
Why not?
We just hooping. We just hooping.
Know each other, and now.
But if we're trying to date seriously, that's a solid question.
Even if it's serious, it's still to me.
Okay, so what was a question then? What was a first date question for you that you were saying that was cool, Miss Taken?
Actually, this is me. I think I would be more comfortable talking about my experience in previous relationship before you telling something like my credit score or my
How money. Is that different? How is that different? They both tell you about the past. They literally they both tell you about your past decision making.
I agree, but again, like I said, I just think certain things are very different. Usually, like when you are going on, let's say I'm saying like a interview or whatever, the first time you meet somebody. So when you are, and I'm not even a girlfriend, a friend, right? Y'all are co-workers.
Yeah.
So y'all share the same space, y'all been around each other. You're not sharing certain things about your personal life with them until you've had enough experience with them to see if there's a level of trust that I may share some other things. And that's what I'm saying. The same thing with dating a person. To reveal certain things, it would be stupid for me to do so because I don't know what your intentions are as a man to use what I'm telling you against me.
But how would that be different? How would that be different if we go with your particular statement? That would mean that I could do the same thing from you telling me about your past relationships. Like, I can just capitalize on what you say moving forward. Whereas with a credit score, I can automatically have an idea of what you think about money. And there's no way for me, like, for example, if somebody has an 800 credit score, that doesn't mean they have money. That doesn't mean they have wealth.
I ask the question. Because
right.
I'm explaining to you why. Because if you're talking about marriage, part of marriage, one of the reasons why marriages don't do well is because of finances and how people look at finances. That is like in the top 3, right? So if it's in the top 3, why would it not be pretty much a designated and a standard question?
One question?
Because one of the questions, yes, because it literally tells a person it tells you a lot about a person's decision making. Okay. Without
move to this city. Like, you know what I'm saying?
How
like,
is that?
What are the like asking somebody's credit score? Like, I feel
that
like
gives
you I feel like you hustling.
Okay, let me ask y'all a question. How can anybody benefit from knowing somebody had a 620 score?
I feel like you have a hustler's mind, because now I'm thinking, and I know plenty of dudes, right? Like, that will meet a chick and like, yeah, what's your credit score? And then right after the date, they're like, hey, Kev, man, I just met this joint. She got like an 800 credit score or whatever, man. I can get her to co-sign on this truck I want.
How? Why would she do that?
Because he's about to manipulate her and smack and give her all the thing, and now got her in love, and now she's like,
without knowing. Listen, most people don't even ask that question about credit score, and they still manipulate, if that's the word you want to use, because I don't believe in it. It still is able to get things from.
You don't believe in manipulating?
No, you have boundaries, and you decide if you want them to be stepped across or not. That's not manipulation. That's you not doing what you wanted to. That's you not staying true to your boundaries.
It don't really got nothing to do with boundaries, because different things play a part.
Here we transition.
Like,
no,
manipulation
is getting somebody to do something. Like we talking about manipulation. Do you know the word?
Yes. So manipulating, right? So here's an easy way to be manipulated, right? Let's say you grew up and family is your core thing. Like, oh, I love my family. We here to support each other, blah, 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 right? That family member then comes to you and be like, hey, man, I'm in a bind. Can you help me? Can you help bail me out of jail? Based off of the principles that you were raised in, making sure that we're all taken care of, that we all got each other's back. This cousin, brother, whatever, might have slipped up and had a drug addiction at this point, or for some reason he bailed out of jail, right? So now they manipulated you because they know you have this core value. People get manipulated all the time based off of yes. No, you're just being ignorant.
Listen, this is the definition. It says involves controlling or influencing someone or something to one's own advantage, often unfairly or dishonestly, right? So what I'm saying is that if you have a boundary of that you're not going to bail somebody out, and you do, that is not manipulation.
You don't know that everybody don't automatically have a boundary not to bail somebody out. Because you might have never dealt with having to bail somebody out. Like, let's say you're from a certain suburban area. You don't have friends that go to jail. It's not a part of your livelihood or whatever. That's not a part of what you deal with every day. You don't know to make that a boundary until it happens to you.
I understand that. I understand that.
So you've been manipulated.
But you no.
Learn to draw boundaries based on experience, right? So
Right.
that's where I think manipulation, like that's how kids are manipulated. They have a lack of
Well, that's kids. I'm not talking about
No.
kids.
Adults as well. I just told you, like even with my mom,
That's
she
a
had-
victim mentality for
No,
somebody
no.
that's
no.
I
It's
got
not a victim
manipulated.
mentality.
If you lack a certain awareness or knowledge of certain things, you're not going to know to have a boundary until you've come into a situation that tells you, okay, I experienced this. I don't want this to happen again. This becomes my boundary, right? So
You
when
live and you learn.
Right. When you are in a situation like now, I know, for example, we were talking about credit and things like that, that my awareness of credit, I passed that down to my daughter, like, you need to make this a boundary. Don't ever put anybody, don't co-sign nothing, don't do da-da-da-da, because it can affect you, right? So in that situation, I was telling her to draw a boundary, but because she had a lack of awareness of what I was talking about, she ended up doing that and then learn from that and now have a better understanding of what I was trying to tell her. Same thing with my husband, with my son. Certain things that he was trying to teach him from his experience growing up in New York, and like, it's certain things you got to do this, you got to do that, make sure your head stay on swivel, you got to da-da-da-da. And none of that made any sense to him because he was in an environment where he never had to apply it. When he ended up going back to New York for his senior year, I let him go stay with, his godmother so he could get residence and get that free tuition. So when he went back that first week, he ended up getting decked in the face. And when we found out, like, what happened, like, and then my husband was like, how did a dude even get that close to you to even walk up to you and do that? So we're fussing at him from a perspective of knowing, but my son didn't have a boundary with that or knew how to apply what the boundary was because he was never in an environment that had to use it. But once that happened, he even came back and was like, now I understand everything y'all were talking about, and that will never happen again.
So with that same, and I'm gonna get the other two in. So you're saying, you all are saying that people are getting manipulated because of lack of information.
I would say yes, or not having a clearly defined boundary. They may have a boundary, but it's not clear exactly. And so if it's not a clear defined boundary, people can manipulate that situation.
Okay. So with that thought process, are you saying this is why I don't like the statement that it's manipulation, because people will use it as if they don't have the knowledge of right and wrong. And everybody has the idea and the knowledge of right and wrong, because it comes back to the point of when a woman may have manipulated a man into marrying her, or a man has manipulated a woman into sleeping with him. This is what I'm talking about. That I don't see manipulation. It's a matter of what's right, what's wrong, and you decide not to do it. That's what I'm talking about. Lost, what's your thoughts?
If a woman presented herself a certain way and played the game of like, I'm this supportive person, I'm submissive, I'm this, I'm that, right? In order to get married, and based on those things, you marry her, and then the real her comes out after marriage. You don't think that person was manipulated, because part of manipulation is a lie, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that situation,
I think there was red flags that was probably ignored, because people can't hold on to. If you're paying attention, I don't think that a person is going to be able to hold on to who they are not for that long of a time period. What you got, Lost?
I'm glad you said that, because we just had this conversation earlier. An example that I use is that Megan Good married what's this guy, Devon, whatever his name is, the pastor. You know how people always like to say, you know, you have to use discernment. Well, this guy's a pastor. You know what I'm saying? And he married her for the explicit purpose of marrying her and having kids with her. And 10 years later down the road, she decided her career was better than having a kid, or I'll do it later. And he wanted kids right away. So at that point, they was like, you know what? Yeah, this ain't the deal I signed up for. Yeah, Devin Franklin. That's it. This ain't what I signed up for, and they got divorced. You see what I'm saying? And that's the reason why people can ask all the questions they want. People still gonna lie, man. And I'm with Prototype, man, on the basketball analogy. You don't need a plan. Most guys don't have a plan. Most guys don't walk up to each other. Hey, what's our 5-year plan for our relationship or our friendship? You know what I'm saying? They just hang out with each other until they like each other. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, they homies. You got guys that you've been friends with for years, man, no matter what. You know, when it comes times to move or weddings and stuff like that, they always gonna be there. You know what I'm saying? That's your homie because you put that time in. And I think sometimes women use plans as a shortcut to get to the bonding portion. And you can't cheat that, man, asking a whole bunch of questions. But here's my thing. You can set yourself up for success, though, by spending a certain amount of time. And sometimes women like to say stuff like, well, if you ask the right questions and da-da-da-da-da. Like I said earlier, the plans are for women, man. You know, and it's always one of those situations where they're looking to shortcut the getting to know you process. And that's why they always asking the man, what's his 5-year plan? And that's why no guy ever asks a woman, what's her 5-year plan? And I think it's weird to me because it's one of those situations where people are going to be themselves until they're tested. They're going to tell you who they are until they've been tested. You see what I'm saying? And it's one of those situations we talked about earlier. You know, you thinking your expectations is that people are always going to be themselves all the time based upon their own expectations. And Devon Franklin's expectations, he really never asked this woman, what did she feel like by having kids? Because in his mind, he was satiating his own desires for her, you know what I'm saying, through his flesh, rather than asking her, hey, look, I know you're having your career, whatever, starting out. When do you think you might, do you even want to have kids? You see what I'm saying? And those are some of the real questions that you have to ask. Because think about it. A lot of people like to say you want to ask some questions. And I don't think that's the truth. Because say, for instance, you go out on a date with a young lady and you ask her, say, hey, look, the first date is on me. What you going to do about the next one? When can I expect for you to kick in, and pay some of these dates to show me that you're interested? You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of times people get in relationships and it's usually one-sided, or in that particular situation, but that's not romantic. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, the man's supposed to be a provider and he's supposed to pay all the bills and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But if you don't have no skin in the game, how can I trust you?
And that's the questions and conversations you need to be
I'm
having.
not done yet. I'm not done yet. That's the reason why I say people lie. I can ask a woman, hey, when you plan on, kicking in on some of these dates, that first date will be the last date, because she's not already financially savvy to go on dates. Think about it. Before I start taking you on a date, I'm like, hey, are you able to financially date? Most guys don't ask women that. You see what I'm saying? But I like I said earlier, mistaken. Sometimes people can feel like they've been taken advantage of because that's something nobody volunteers. Nobody volunteers their credit score because people always trying to hide stuff. Nobody volunteers their particular motives because they're trying to satisfy their flesh. If we're being honest, people are going to lie. That's the main reason why you put people through the test, like Prototype said. How well do you operate on a regular basis when there is no benefit for you? You see what I'm saying? When there's no benefit for me, those are relationships that you need to really examine. Because here's the thing, if I'm not trying to get anything out of you, you're not trying to get anything out of me. To me, that is the best kind of relationship, because you can actually see that person for who they are versus what they provide to you for your own benefit.
That's good.
This is where questions come in. And I hear what you're saying, but my thing is like, if I know I'm an individual that would expect a man to be the financial provider and me not have to pay for anything, or at least at the very least, because I'm that's not my personality. At the very least, like go on dates. If we go on a date, I do have the expectation that he's going to pay, right? So by you asking that question lets me know that this isn't the person that I need to engage in any more time with, right? Listen, hold on. In any more time with, right? Because I understand that we're not in alignment on that thing. Now, that does not mean that you have other attributes and things like that I might be okay with, right? But I think that's where questioning comes in, because it lets you know, do I want to even, like how y'all use the basketball analogy, do I even want to get on the court with this person already knowing that, you know, he doesn't have a jump shot, or he doesn't know how to dribble? I don't even want to get on the court to figure that out. I'm going to just go ahead and choose this dude over here that looks like he might have a better game. You understand what I'm saying? I know, like how you were saying, the honesty part, people are going to lie. But when they're asking the question, right? If the question is never asked, I don't ever lie, right? So I think that is part of the questioning process, is to let me ask these questions to see if I even still want to invest any more time.
Well, then what's wrong with my question?
Well, actually, if I responded to that question and said,
did.
Oh, well, can I just respond to
Go ahead.
If you had asked me that question and we were on a date, I would be like, oh, wow. I was like, you know, I've never had anybody ask me that before on a first date. I don't feel comfortable answering that question now because I think it's really personal. But if we spend more time together, I don't mind sharing that information with you. And that's it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to answer it, but I'm not divulging that kind of information to you on the first day and I don't know you.
Okay, but go
But
ahead.
you can eat on the first date not knowing, right?
Because it's just
I'm
food.
just saying it's not a problem on the first date. So I'm just asking.
Keep that money in my own pocket so I can pay my way. So I will always have that as a backup. So if you feel a certain way and that was your response, that's cool. Here's my money for my dinner. I'm good.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, there will be no second date.
Yeah. Ash,
both of us.
Ash, what you got?
You know what? I don't forgot. Y'all give me a headache. I can't focus over here.
So it's me asking the question of what's your, like, I didn't do it. I'm just asking, but it's asking the question of what's your credit score, a good or bad question on a first date.
Why are you bringing it up? Can we talk about something else on first date?
That's a part of it. That's a part of it. That's what you're gonna say. Can we talk about something else? Okay, yes. What would you like to talk about?
See, my thing is the first date. Okay, is this the first date of us just going out and being in public together, or this is the first date?
We've had conversations, I guess, but this would be the first date of us going in public together.
Is the room uncomfortable? Like, is it uncomfortable in there? I mean, are we comfortable like that? Because if we comfortable like that, I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm trying to get to about 750 by the end of the year because I am low-key trying to work that way. But I'm just saying, I just want to know the contents of this question, what was going on prior to that. Because, like, if it's a first at the gate date, then that's not your business. You need to calm down, Mr. Red.
Okay, so could I ask the question of what was your last relationship like? I can ask that question.
Yeah.
This is why I think that there is a weirdness to this, like, because you're giving background to who you are when you begin to talk about who the people you dated. It's no different. Your credit score is the same thing. Like, how is it that it is the exact same thing?
No, it's not. Those creditors after 7 years does not count. But if I have a kid with someone like I do now, that stays on my dating report forever. But
which one is better to talk about though? About how you had a baby with somebody and you're not married to them versus the decision, your financial status.
This both decision for me, baby. They go hand in hand. Because when I had that kid, I had to be a little bit more financially responsible. I had to understand how to count and actually add that little 95 cents so I don't go negative. Understand? Come up out the negative before the next paycheck hit. See, that goes hand in hand depending on who you talking to.
Right. And I think I'm just confused by how it is that there are people saying that it makes sense to tell about your past as it relates to the people that you dated, but not how you spent your money.
Because
I think on the first date,
I think what it is that what I hear is that people wanting to be able to deflect onto somebody else what the issues were, as opposed to what did you do right or wrong with your financial history. That's what it sounds
tell you
like.
about both of those. I messed it all up, babe. I ain't see the difference is when you ask these questions, you gotta know who you're talking to. And I think
Agreed.
the problem is that when we ask these questions, like Law said, everybody ain't willing to tell the truth. Y'all know I tell the truth. I don't care about my devil. I'm the devil in the mirror. I'm the one that messed it up. I am very impatient, but at the same time I think the question, like I was asking, is the room comfortable? Are we comfortable with talking like that? Because some people do have a problem with talking about their exes, and maybe they rather talk about their finances because that they have more control of. Because a lot of these people are not over their exes. Because I know I got yelled at one day, and they were being very over dramatic over nothing. I just asked a simple question, but some people have not dealt with certain trauma when it comes to certain names, and what they say, it's a trigger. I don't just say.
Do you think asking your body count is an appropriate first date question?
If that's where you want to go, yeah. Because if
I'm asking HD.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
When I think body count, I don't think that it's going to necessarily. I would say no. Because in that matter, that you're talking about sex, but what I think that
we're not talking about sex. We're talking about. You think body count's about sex?
That's what. Yes. What do you mean? That's what you're talking about.
It's not about the body count question. Is not about sex.
Body count is about you having sex. That's how it becomes a body count.
The body count question.
Go ahead.
Is not about sex.
Okay, educate me.
It's really about your decision making and who you are and how much value you really have. Am I going to be embarrassed with you outside? Yeah, like if out here on this date is, what I'm saying, am I going to be getting like, oh, I had that too, bro? Like, it's really about how are you going to embarrass me in the world? But it's really not about sex at all.
Okay,
it's about who you are.
About your ego. Okay, got it.
It's not even an ego thing for real. Nobody wants to be.
That's exactly.
Nobody wants, like, if I'm a certain caliber of person, what I'm saying, don't nobody want to be dealing with, what I'm saying, like, I don't hang out in the hood. I don't drink certain liquors. What I'm saying, I don't drink Mad Dog or anything like that. What I'm saying, like, there's a certain way I live my life. What I'm saying. So if me hanging with you on this date, if I should take this to this or that way, who was this woman? What I'm saying? Who she been with? I feel like if we're in a dating situation, that's more of a relevant situation than what's your credit score. You can't fix a body count, but you could fix a credit score.
But both of them tell you the history and how one thinks, though.
But see,
it's a better question though. You can't. One you can fix, and the other one you can't.
I think it's that doesn't make it a bad question, because one you can't fix. Both still tell you at the end of the day how people are, how mature are they with their flesh and their finances. Okay, it does both. So if the question is, hey, what's your credit score? Now, the reason why it's a justifiable question is because one also allows you to see, is somebody going to be transparent with you? Is somebody going to be honest enough to say, you know what, I have a 580 right now, but listen, what I'm trying to do is get to this particular point in my life, and I may need some help with that, or this is what I'm working on to get to that. If somebody says, well, my body count is 20, right? Now you're like, okay, that's going to be up to the dude. Be like, okay, well, I don't know if I can see myself with this woman. Right. And the same thing as it relates to a man hearing that, okay, her credit score is a 580. This is what I have in my head or what my finances are like, and what I want her to even come along with me on my journey of where I'm at financially. I think it's both are very personal questions that need to be handled and talked
It's
about.
both a question that you shouldn't ask on the first date.
I'm talking about
Those
that should be
questions are
about
not
marriage.
first date questions.
That I said one of them is about sex. You said it's not about sex, but a woman will perceive that to be that you're asking her about sex. And if you're talking about sex on the first date, that's what she's going to think about.
They're both egregious. No, like I said,
How is finances egregious?
They're egregious questions.
HD, if you don't mind, I'd like to.
Let me say this real quick.
To dive in.
Absolutely. Let me say this one thing, and I'm gonna let it go so we can go, right? Because they're gonna ask you one of the questions. A question that will definitely be asked is, what do you do? What's your career? That automatically tells a person what type of money you make.
That is also a question that people like to deflect from.
But what I'm saying is that still
Especially
tells somebody about
women with money will tell you they work a low income job. Like, people deflect. Like, dudes will drive the Toyota instead of the Lamborghini to deflect from what they do. Nobody wants to be asked what's your job title in relation to if you're trying to clock how much I'm making. They're questions that you should avoid on the first date.
I'm just saying that is even on Pop the Balloon, that's one of the main questions that they ask. What do you do? Right? And that connects them to your money automatically. Go ahead, Lost, what you got?
I think the line of questioning is not really important. It's the root of what we're actually looking for. In Prototype situation, the reason why he's asking for body count, he wants to know how insecure she is. And for Mistaken to say it's about his ego, it's not. It could also be about his health. You know, if she's a promiscuous person and she likes to sleep around, that's a health issue. But it also leads back to being insecure. If you have somebody who likes to go shopping all the time, who like to buy designer bags and all this other stuff, it speaks to an insecurity in that person that they're not enough. So instead of us asking each other what are our insecurities, we ask insignificant questions like, what's your body count or what's your credit score? Instead of actually taking the time out to get to know somebody. It's just like when I said earlier I was telling Mistaken earlier about taking a woman out on a date, and you on the first day and say, hey, look, I'm going to ask you a straight up question. Well, a question I really want to know. Is this going to be an expectation? I'm going to be expected to pay for all the dinners or whatever, because you expect that's a demonstration of how a man's supposed to provide? Or are you just using me? Do you even like me like that? You see what I'm saying? You never ask anybody any questions like that. You kind of like play along and then see that type of thing. But if we really ask those questions, I'm going to ask you, hey, how far along are you with your finances? You know what I mean? What are your bills like? Do you have the money that you need to do to date? You know, could you support a family if need be, if something happens to me? You know, those are those real type of questions that you really should ask. But 9 times out of 10, men never ask women what their 5-year plan is, because we're their 5-year plan. But if they're smart, they would ask them, hey, how much money do you make, ma'am? And if something happens to me, could you fit the load? Because women love to say they want a partner until a bill shows up. You see what I'm saying? Until it's their turn to roll a little bit. You know what I'm saying? If something happens to you. So those are some of the questions that we really need to ask. But most times, most people don't ask those real questions because people don't want the real questions. And that's the main reason why I was telling you, people will lie until they figure out exactly who you are, or if they can get what they want to get. I know that doesn't sound good or whatever, but based from what I've seen, that is reality. So until you actually get to really know somebody, to get past the fronts and the mask that people put up in relationships because they don't want to get hurt, and they put up these walls that people call standards, that's the only way we're going to really get down to having real marriages with real relationships that build real families.
Man. Well, Mistaken, you're going to take us out. You got the last words, if you would like them, to add to the conversation or the topic at hand, which was for this particular, because it kind of spiraled out, right? Men, men want marriage, women want weddings.
All right. It was to answer that. It was two things. I 100% agree with what Lost in Translation said about not asking the heart of the matter question. And that's why I was saying for you, if you're asking me about my credit score, I don't know what you're doing with that. In my mind, I'm thinking there's something else underneath that. But if you had asked a legit question of like, how are you with your finances? I'm more likely to answer that question, even though you're trying to get at the same thing. The perception of the question matters. So if you're if you're asking the superficial question to try to get to the deep answer, you're not going to get it, versus just asking what it is that you want to know, right? And then even too, I also think a lot of times we do try to make judgment calls, because I just think as humans, that's what we do. We want to categorize things, we're trying to figure things out. So I get that. But I think what happens a lot of times is, and the reason I'm going to say the body count thing, because this comes up a lot with guys, and I've seen it, and not that I'm trying to change anybody's mind. You move how you going to move. But I also am of the belief that has a lot to do with you need to be what you're asking for, right? And I know everybody sit there and say, because I'm talking about character and truth, I don't think those are gender specific, right? That's just universal. That's just character. So if your expectation is body count matters because it lets me know what it is, how you value yourself. I don't want to be embarrassed, all of those things. I don't think that's gender specific. I think, or like how Lost in Translation said, he worried about his health. As a woman, I should be worried about your body count as well. But in a society like this, it's acceptable, right, for men to go around and have high body counts, even though as a woman, we're susceptible to the same stuff that you're saying you want to avoid. Nobody wants the community D, right? No, I don't want to go around knowing that, dang, you slept with her too. Dang, you slept with her too, right? Or that you got a disease. So that's why I say I don't like that whole body count thing. And I think it has a lot to do with the ego, not necessarily the issue. Because if it had something to do with the issue, then you would be what it is you're seeking. So that's why, and then too, what other guys have pointed out, they was like, and even if you ask the body count, it's not even like they'll give you an honest answer. So I rather look at the character of the person. And that's why I say the age and stage matters. I know, like, example, well, you can make mistakes in your younger age that still impacts you today. That's absolutely true. If I did something and I ended up going to jail, that's going to impact me for the rest of my life. So I do get that. But I think there are other things that you can say that was a bad judgment call, but I can understand that because he or she was young, right? Didn't have enough life experience. But what he or she did at 16 and now we're 36, in my opinion, I think is pointless to hold them accountable for something that they did when that's not the same person I'm meeting today. And I think that's where we get caught up, especially if we're talking biblically. I need to know that you've grown from those mistakes. Now, if you still moving like that, if you still trying to be the community D, if you still giving it up to men like that, then it makes sense to make that judgment call. But if you're talking about something that happened while they were in their 20s in college, and now you're 36, 46 years old, and you can clearly see that that's not how this person moves, me knowing that truth about you should not hinder me moving forward if the person that I'm meeting today is totally different. And I've seen that in people. So that was all I was getting at, is that sometimes we ask the questions, we get answers that we don't like. But if they're being honest with you and saying, well, yeah, in my past, I was like, I used to sell drugs, or I used to do And now we're, but I've learned from that. And these are what I've done over the years. I went to counseling. I did where they've done the work to become a better person. Then I think that's where grace comes in. And I think people lack that.
Saying you're an ex-drug dealer is actually a flex. Saying you did your time in jail to a lot of women is actually a flex.
Not to you mistaken. He's saying to some women.
The caliber of women that you're looking for, that matters.
You keep talking about this caliber of women like you don't understand the caliber of women. You know what I'm saying? I think you're missing on who the caliber of women are, because the caliber of women we talking about. I used
to be a hood chick because I grew up in a hood. So something like that, not that I necessarily thought it was a flex, but it was an expectation, like, oh, who hasn't sold drugs? Not really knowing that was something that wasn't a good thing because everybody did it. Oh,
but he's not referring to you though, Miss Taker. He's speaking in generalities. Most women want bad boys. That's why they struggle right now, because later in their years, they're wanting a good dude. They're wanting the dude that they wouldn't give time to back in the day. And that is the struggle that a lot of women are having, of why they're hitting the wall so hard, because the dude that they wanted doesn't want them. That's the thing that's going on right now. You had something you wanted to finish up with, Prototype?
Yeah, man, and it even comes to the sexual partner thing, man. Like I said before, women want a guy with leadership and experience. A dude without a lot of sexual partners, she automatically think he cannot do what he needs to do in bed and make the and satisfy her. So that's why it's not shunned as a man. I mean, for you to have a high sex body count as a man, because women think experience equals satisfaction. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, experience equals better, right? So if I'm able to sleep with a lot of women, oh, well, because you slept with a lot of women, you must be able to do this to me. You know what I'm saying? Opposed to a dude would take a virgin, right? A girl with no sexual experience, you know what I'm saying, over someone with a lot of sexual experience. And women are the complete opposite. So.
And then cheat on her with the woman that has all of the experience that you want, because a virgin is not going to do all of the things that you've experienced with those women.
If we're talking about a guy that's married, he doesn't like. If we already know, we got to teach her everything anyway. So sex is just another thing I got to teach her how to do.
I guess we listen.
No, the women we don't want to teach are the hoes. We don't. That's why if a dude's looking for a quick turnaround, we don't want to teach her.
Like if a dude is married and he's cheating, he cheated on his wife. He cheated on the woman that could do more. You're saying? I mean, that was an immoral act, right? But the average dude, and most average dudes are not getting play like that. But if the statement that what we're saying wasn't true, we could look at celebrities not even celebrities, but even men that are of great status. Women want them. That should not be something that's not unseen. Like you know that the jock was the person that got all the women, not the nerd, right? The man that has the most status, the most money, whatever it is, women flock to him, and as a result, he has many, many options to have sex. Not only that, most women like a man that's able to get multiple women, because if she's chosen, she feels a part of that. That's just unfortunate, but that's what it is.
It plays into her ego, right?
Yes. Yes. If you're able to capture the jock, and you know that the jock is having sex with all of these women, then you're cool with being a part of the team. If that wasn't true, we wouldn't have no Nick Cannons. We wouldn't have no Nick Cannons. We wouldn't have no Futures. We wouldn't have no Sean Kemps. We wouldn't have no Scottie Pippens. We wouldn't have no how Michael Jordan doing his thing. We wouldn't have so many of these men able to do that. You can say the same thing for men look at what's Steve Harvey's daughter. Look at her totally different, because she's had so many sex partners. People look at Megan Good. I don't know if she is or not, but they will look at her different, is what I'm saying. It's unfortunate what it is, but that is what it is, that women want men that have sexual experience. And it's been said many times before. You're just different, Miss Taken.
Well, no, I think the caveat that you're leaving out now, Nick Cannon, I think in what's his name, Neo or whatever, like that, you do have some people or women that are cool with that. But what I'm saying is the vast majority of women, even if they're going after the popular guy, this is where we mess our own selves up, is that we think we're going to be the different one.
Okay.
We think that we're going to be the one that tames him and he's no longer going to need those other women. So
but he's still going to smash, though, is the point.
But my point is that I think what you're saying is true, but it's not the full scope of the picture. It's not that we just want that dude because everybody else want them.
Okay.
It's the fact that we think that if we get with him, we're good enough to change him and he's not going to need to do any of those things anymore because we're going to be the one that he was missing all of this time.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of women, like, I can't say that they were manipulated by a dude. We've manipulated ourselves into believing that. That's on us. We have to take ownership, of that part. So it's not just I want him because all of the other women want him. It's something about him that they do find attractive. They don't necessarily want him to be with other women. And their mindset is, I'm going to be able to change him. And I
that's
think
an ego trip. That's an ego trip. So she's trying to stroke her ego while she automatically strokes his by letting him smash, and that she's trying to be the person that untames that beast. That's what I'm saying. But this has been a dope conversation that got off topic. You know what I'm saying? But it's been real. It's been good. It's been fun. I appreciate the time from everyone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Check out Prototype on all platforms. Lost in Translation podcast. Mistaken is still doing her thing, I think, on Friday nights over there on Lapeef Network. And then Ash is studying to be a lawyer or something like that. Yeah, I think. You can check her out on Facebook. And until next time, you're welcome. Until next time, we out here. Deuces.
The boy is dangerous.
You don't seem to understand something.
The thing that I like most about being a dad is that I see them about to impact the world.